This is a $15 watch that might get you stopped at the airport. Now, how could such a boring looking watch cause so much trouble? Because somehow this watch is linked to a dark history and has a massive cult-like following with over 3 million people buying it every single year. So I had to figure out why. Since getting into watches a couple of months ago, no matter where I look, I see this, the legendary Casio F91W. It's on the wrist of construction workers, college students, and even Steve Jobs and Obama. And also, people you might not expect. It's even made its way into declassified intelligence reports as a potential security risk. Wait, that doesn't add up. So I bought one. It's cheap, and I needed to find out the truth. And after a couple weeks of wearing it, I had some questions. What makes this watch so special? And is there a chance you'll end up on a government watch list? By the end of this video, you'll know the truth and whether this watch is still worth buying today. So at first glance, it looks like a pretty normal watch, right? It's black, it has a plasticky feel, it's not smart or fancy, and it's super cheap. So why does it have such a dark past? Well, while wearing it, the first thing I noticed, I forgot I was even wearing it. Unlike other watches that feel bulky or weigh down your wrist, this thing just disappears the second you put it on. It weighs only 20 grams, that's around the same weight as 2 credit cards. It's so easy to forget you're even wearing it. The strap is ultra flexible, made of plastic resin to keep it ultra affordable compared to metal or even leather. It can fit almost every wrist size, so anyone can pick it up and it'll fit perfectly. Plus, the watch face is so thin that it hides underneath your sleeves without getting caught or sticking out. It's super easy to read. It tells the time, the day of the week, and the date of the month at a quick glance. Now that's a lot of info on a tiny screen, which could be used for nefarious means. In fact, it's ended up in declassified intelligence reports and was flagged as a security risk by multiple counterterrorism agencies. Wait, counterterrorism? Is there something about it that makes it dangerous? Well, not exactly. It's just really good at keeping time and it's dang near indestructible. Drop it, dunk it, freeze it, it doesn't matter. It just keeps ticking. Now officially, the watch isn't waterproof. Casio doesn't even recommend anything more than wearing it in the rain or washing your hands with it on. But unofficially, it can withstand up to 60 meters of water resistance. But that doesn't make this watch dangerous, just really reliable. Reliable for what though? Well, in the early 2000s, several counterterrorism reports started flagging this watch for a surprising reason. It was showing up as a timer on homemade explosives. Because the watch is so simple and accurate, it became the de facto choice for bomb makers around the world. And if you compare it to more expensive mechanical watches, which tend to be off around 10 seconds every day, this watch is much more accurate. It has a quartz movement and is only off by about a second a day, if that. It's literally 10 times more accurate. Now, because a mechanical watch is like an old wind-up toy, it runs on gears and springs that need to be manually wound and powered by wrist movement. Over time, these parts wear down slightly, making the watch less accurate, and it drifts by a few seconds every day. Now, a quartz watch is like a tuning fork. You strike it and it vibrates at a constant frequency. Inside, the quartz crystal does the same thing. It vibrates a ton of times every day, keeping an ultra steady rhythm, which means accurate time. So if you need extremely precise time tracking, a quartz movement is hard to beat, especially at $15. So why is it so cheap to make a quartz watch? Well, a quartz watch is like a calculator and a mechanical watch is like an old-fashioned typewriter. A calculator is cheap and precise and runs on a battery. It just works. Whereas typewriters, there's a little bit of room for error there. And because it's quartz, it can have other features, such as switching between 12-hour and 24-hour time. Boom! Military time, baby. It also has an alarm and a stopwatch used to time things or even be used as a trigger. But there's more. In the early 2000s, more than 50 detainees at Guantanamo Bay, a compound outside of the US used for interviewing suspected terrorists, were caught wearing this watch, enough for US intelligence to start flagging it as a potential security threat. However, they could have been wearing it for the same reason that we do. To tell the time, duh, and because it's reliable for extended stretches. Most watches, they only last 3 to 5 years on a battery. With this one, you only have to replace it every 7 to 10 years. That's up to 3,650 days without charging, or battery change. So maybe they really were just wearing a watch because it was cheap and reliable? But what's weird is that a third of them were actually trained in making explosives. And if you go further back, you realize it's not just a theory. This watch has been used in actual terrorist attacks. In 1994, an Al-Qaeda bomb maker used the timer on this watch to add a 4-hour delay on a custom explosive on a plane, with one person dying in the process. And in 1999, the Millennium Bomber tried smuggling explosive devices across the Canadian border, and every single one was wired with Casio as the timer. But it doesn't stop there. This watch is seen over and over again in bomb-making facilities and on the wrists of terrorists. Even Osama bin Laden himself wore one. But we can't mistake correlation with causation. I mean, the watch is so cheap and so available that anyone can get their hands on it. Literally anyone. Millions of regular people wear this watch every single year. Since its release in 1989, Casio has sold over 120 million units, all without a single change to the watch. In 2025, it looks the exact same as 1989. For context, Apple has sold 270 million Apple Watches since 2015. But that's a smartwatch. It can do fitness tracking, notifications, all sorts of things. And the more I dug, I realized that there's literally a whole cult following for this thing. But here's the real question. Does wearing one today actually get you stopped at the airport? To answer that, we need to figure out how this urban myth even came around. I would say there's a few reasons. The first is that the news about the Guantanamo Bay detainees who actually had this watch were stopped for owning one. So if they got stopped, why wouldn't I get stopped too? It's a reasonable assumption. But alongside that, there's also the internet of people spreading myths and rumors like wildfire. Heck, it's a running joke on Reddit that this watch can get you stopped at the airport. And if you didn't watch this whole video, you would probably believe the same thing. I mean, it sounds believable, right? A cheap watch is linked to terrorism over and over again, so why wouldn't TSA double check to make sure? But here's the truth. There is no official ban on the Casio F91W. TSA doesn't flag it, airlines don't care, and no government has ever outlawed it. You can literally walk right through a TSA checkpoint wearing this and no alarms start blaring. 99% of the time, you can wear this watch at an airport and nothing will happen. And if you do get stopped, it's most likely not the watch. I get stopped and checked farther almost every time I fly. And I think it's my sunscreen, but who knows? It's not the watch. Now, despite its history, it is just a really good watch. It's insanely useful at telling the time, has a big following, and it's cheap. For $15, you're not gonna find a better watch anywhere. But hey, if you'd rather avoid all the dark history, maybe check out the Timex Weekender instead. And if you're feeling fancy, I've got a video on how to build your own custom mechanical watch right here. Check it out. Bye!